Grace Whitmore stood in the center of Sebastian Irving's ridiculously massive penthouse office. Flour dusting her freckled nose, and her favorite overalls paint, stained from helping her niece with art projects that morning. Completely unbothered by the fact that she looked nothing like the polished executives probably used to walking through his doors. She'd been summoned here after her bakery, Sweet Rebellion, had won a last-minute contract to provide desserts for Irving Industries' annual charity gala next month, and apparently the Billionaire CEO wanted to meet her personally before finalizing anything. "Miss Whitmore," Sebastian said, rising from behind his desk. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair and eyes that reminded Grace of expensive whiskey. The man wore a suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, and she immediately felt defensive. "Look," Grace said before he could continue, crossing her arms. "I know my bakery is small, and I know I showed up looking like I just wrestled a bag of powdered sugar, but my work speaks for itself. If this meeting is about trying to get me to act differently or present some corporate image, I'm not interested. I won't change for you or anyone else just to fit some expectation." Sebastian blinked, then something warm flickered in his expression. "I was actually going to say it's nice to meet you and offer you coffee." Grace felt heat crawl up her neck. "Oh, but I appreciate your honesty," he continued, and there was genuine amusement in his voice. "Please sit. I've been eating your chocolate croissants for 3 weeks straight. My assistant discovered your bakery, and I've been hooked ever since. When we needed someone for the gala, you were my first choice." Grace sat slowly in one of the leather chairs across from his desk, trying to reconcile this relaxed, almost playful man with the intimidating billionaire she'd built up in her head during the cab ride over. Sebastian Irving had a reputation for being brilliant and demanding in business, taking over his family's shipping empire at 25 and transforming it into a global logistics powerhouse by 32. She'd expected cold corporate efficiency, not warm eyes and compliments about her croissants. "Your assistant has good taste," Grace said, relaxing slightly. "Those croissants are my grandmother's recipe. She was French, taught me everything about baking." "They're perfect," Sebastian said simply, sitting back down, "which is exactly what I want to talk to you about. This gala raises money for youth education programs. 500 guests, all expecting something impressive, but I don't want stuffy or pretentious. I want real, memorable, something with heart. Your bakery feels like that. Like someone who bakes because they love it, not because they're checking boxes." Grace studied him, suspicious of the sincerity she heard. Men like Sebastian Irving didn't usually appreciate authenticity. They appreciated profit margins and efficiency. "You've clearly never been to my bakery if you think I check any boxes. I play 80s rock music. My decor is mismatched furniture from thrift stores, and I refuse to make anything with fondant because it tastes like sweet rubber." Sebastian laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his entire face. "I have been to your bakery, actually, last Tuesday morning. You were singing along to Journey while decorating a birthday cake shaped like a dinosaur." Grace's mouth fell open. "That was you." "The guy in the corner reading the newspaper." "Guilty," Sebastian said. "I wanted to see the place for myself before this meeting. You told a kid who came in that her drawing of a unicorn was suitable for framing, then gave her a free cookie. She was 6 and the drawing was terrible, but she was proud of it," Grace said defensively. "And I always give kids free cookies. It's good karma." "It's good business," Sebastian countered. "That kid will remember your kindness. Her parents will come back. You're building community, not just selling products. That's rare." Grace shifted in her chair, uncomfortable with the praise but also unexpectedly pleased. She'd opened Sweet Rebellion 3 years ago after quitting her soul-crushing job at a corporate catering company that cared more about cost-cutting than quality. Everyone had told her she was crazy to walk away from steady income and benefits. Her ex-boyfriend had said she was being childish and unrealistic, but Grace had been miserable and life was too short for miserable. "So what do you actually need from me?" Grace asked. Because if you want 500 identical perfect desserts arranged in color-coordinated rows, I'm not your baker. I want 500 desserts that taste like someone cared about making them, Sebastian said. Variety, creativity, whatever you think works. I trust your judgment. You don't even know me, Grace pointed out. I know your quasas, Sebastian said. And I know you gave a kid a free cookie just to see her smile. That tells me plenty. Grace found herself smiling despite her determination to remain professional and guarded. There was something disarming about Sebastian Irving, something that didn't match his billionaire reputation at all. He seemed genuinely interested in what she had to say, leaning forward slightly when she spoke, asking questions about her process and her inspirations. By the time they'd outlined the basics for the gala, an hour had passed without Grace noticing. I should get back to the bakery, Grace said, glancing at her phone. I have a wedding cake consultation this afternoon and 3 dozen cupcakes to finish. Let me drive you, Sebastian offered, standing. I can take the subway. I know you can, Sebastian said, but I'd like to drive you if you'll let me. There was something in the way he said it, not presumptuous or demanding, but almost hopeful, that made Grace pause. Okay, she heard herself say. Sebastian's car was predictably luxurious, all leather and expensive technology. But he drove carefully through Manhattan traffic, asking Grace about how she'd gotten into baking, what made her decide to open her own place. Grace found herself talking more than she usually did, explaining about her grandmother's patient teaching, the way baking had always been her escape during stressful times, her belief that good food could create moments of joy in difficult days. My father thinks I'm wasting my potential, Sebastian said suddenly as they stopped at a red light. He wanted me to expand more aggressively, acquire competitors, maximize profits. But I keep thinking about legacy and what actually matters. Money is just a tool. What you do with it is what counts. Grace looked at him with new interest. That's unexpectedly philosophical for a billionaire. Most billionaires are more complicated than people assume, Sebastian said, glancing at her with a slight smile. Just like most bakers are more complicated than people assume. Touché, Grace said. When they reached Sweet Rebellion, Sebastian insisted on walking her inside, and Grace saw her assistant Maya's eyebrows shoot up at the sight of the impeccably dressed man following her through the door. The bakery smelled like cinnamon and vanilla, the afternoon sun streaming through the large front windows Grace had specifically chosen for the natural light. Her mismatched furniture and vintage posters gave the place a cozy, lived-in feeling that she loved. This is perfect, Sebastian said softly, looking around. It feels like you. You don't know what I feel like, Grace said, but there was no bite in her words. Not yet, Sebastian agreed, but I'd like to. Grace's heart did something complicated in her chest. She was used to men being intimidated by her independence or annoyed by her refusal to soften her edges. Sebastian seemed drawn to exactly those qualities. It was unsettling and exciting in equal measure. I need to work, Grace said, not quite meeting his eyes. Of course, Sebastian said. But Grace, thank you for being exactly who you are. It's refreshing. He left before she could respond, and Maya immediately appeared at her elbow. Who was that, and why was he looking at you like you personally invented sunshine? That was Sebastian Irving, Grace said, tying her apron on. And he wasn't looking at me like anything. We have a business arrangement. Grace, I've known you for 2 years and I've never seen you flustered. You're flustered. I'm not flustered, I'm busy. We have a massive catering job to prepare for. But she was flustered, and she remained flustered throughout her consultation with the bride, who wanted an elaborate 4-tier cake with fresh flowers. Grace kept thinking about Sebastian's warm eyes and the way he'd listened to her like her words actually mattered. She thought about him while mixing batter for the cupcakes, while piping frosting, while closing up the bakery that evening. It was dangerous, she told herself. Men like Sebastian Irving didn't really want women like her. They wanted someone polished and sophisticated, someone who fit into their world of galas and business dinners. And even if he was genuinely interested now, eventually he'd want her to change, to be less messy, less opinionated, less herself. That's what always happened. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Sebastian. Maya gave me your number, I hope that's okay. I wanted to make sure you got home safely." Grace stared at the message, warmth spreading through her chest despite her best efforts to remain skeptical. "I'm still at the bakery, but yes, that's okay. How did you convince Maya to give you my number?" "I told her I was desperately in love with your croissants and needed to be able to contact you in case of pastry emergencies." Grace laughed out loud in her empty bakery. "Smooth, I thought so. Can I take you to dinner tomorrow night? I promise it won't be anywhere too fancy. I'm thinking of this Italian place in Brooklyn that makes their own pasta." Grace's finger hovered over the screen. Every logical part of her brain said this was a bad idea. But her heart, traitorous thing that it was, wanted to say yes. "Is this about the gala?" "No, this is about me wanting to spend more time with you." "Okay. Okay. Yes, Sebastian, dinner tomorrow, but I'm wearing jeans and you're not allowed to judge me for ordering too much bread." "I would never judge anyone for ordering too much bread. Pick you up at 7. Make it 6:30, I get hungry early." Grace could almost hear his laugh through the text. The next evening, Grace changed her outfit 4 times before settling on jeans, a soft green sweater that brought out her eyes, and her favorite leather jacket. She left her red hair down in its usual waves and applied minimal makeup, reminding herself that if Sebastian wanted to see her, he was getting the real version, not some dolled-up fantasy. When he arrived at her apartment building, he was wearing jeans too, paired with a button-down shirt and a leather jacket that looked well-worn and comfortable. Grace felt something settle in her chest at the sight. "You look beautiful," Sebastian said, and the way he said it made her believe he meant it. "You look surprisingly normal," Grace replied. "I was half expecting a tuxedo." "I saved the tuxedo for Tuesdays," Sebastian said solemnly. "Wednesdays are for casual normalcy." The Italian restaurant was everything Sebastian promised, small and warm with checkered tablecloths and the smell of garlic and tomatoes filling the air. They ordered too much food and split a bottle of wine, conversation flowing easily from topic to topic. Grace learned that Sebastian had a younger sister who was a marine biologist, that he'd wanted to be an architect before family pressure pushed him toward business, that he volunteered teaching financial literacy classes at community centers on weekends. "That doesn't fit the ruthless billionaire image," Grace said, twirling pasta on her fork. "Most of that image is media exaggeration," Sebastian said. "I work hard and I make tough decisions, but I'm not some cold corporate robot. I just don't usually let people see the other parts." "Why not?" Sebastian was quiet for a moment, considering. "Because vulnerability is complicated when you have money. People either want something from you or they're looking for reasons to tear you down. It's easier to keep walls up." "That sounds lonely," Grace said softly. "It can be," Sebastian admitted. "But then I meet someone who tells me to my face that she won't change for me, and suddenly the walls seem less necessary." Grace felt her cheeks warm. "I might have been a little defensive." "You were perfect," Sebastian said. "You were exactly yourself, unapologetically." "Do you know how rare that is?" "Most people think I'm too much," Grace said, surprised by her own honesty. "Too loud, too messy, too opinionated. My ex used to make comments about how I should be more feminine, more refined. He wanted me to close the bakery and get a real job, as if pouring my heart into something I built wasn't real enough." Sebastian's expression darkened. "He sounds like an idiot." "He was," Grace agreed. "But the criticism stuck, made me wonder if maybe I should soften some of my edges." "Please don't," Sebastian said, reaching across the table to touch her hand. "Your edges are what make you interesting. Anyone can be polished and perfect. You're real and passionate and completely yourself. That's extraordinary." Grace turned her hand over, linking her fingers with his. His palm was warm and calloused, surprising for a billionaire CEO. What are the calluses from? I've been restoring an old sailboat, Sebastian said, something my grandfather and I started before he passed. I work on it when I need to clear my head when business gets too corporate and suffocating. I'd like to see it sometime, Grace said. I'd like to show you, Sebastian replied. They stayed at the restaurant until closing, talking and laughing, sharing bites of tiramisu and arguing playfully about whether pineapple belonged on pizza. When Sebastian walked Grace to her apartment door, the night air was cool and the city hummed around them with its usual energy. I had a really good time, Grace said, digging for her keys. So did I, Sebastian said. Can I see you again, not for the gala, just for this, for us? Grace looked up at him at the hope and sincerity in his expression and felt her last defenses crumbling. Yes, she said, I'd like that. Sebastian smiled, that warm, genuine smile that transformed his whole face, and leaned down to kiss her cheek. Good night, Grace. Good night, Sebastian. Grace floated into her apartment, already knowing she was in trouble. Falling for someone was complicated enough. Falling for a billionaire seemed like asking for heartbreak. But as she got ready for bed, she couldn't stop smiling. Over the next 3 weeks, Grace and Sebastian fell into a rhythm. He'd stop by the bakery in the mornings before work, sitting in the corner with his coffee and laptop, occasionally looking up to watch her work. Grace found she liked having him there, liked catching his eye and seeing his smile. He never got in her way or made demands on her time, just existed in her space like he belonged there. They had dinner twice more, went to a midnight showing of an old movie Grace loved, spent a Sunday afternoon at a street fair where Sebastian won her a ridiculous stuffed elephant by being unexpectedly good at ring toss. He fit into her life with surprising ease, teasing Meyer until she laughed, charming Grace's regular customers, helping clean up after closing without being asked. But Grace kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Sebastian to start suggesting changes or improvements. When he showed up for their marina date wearing expensive shoes, Grace almost canceled, certain he'd hate getting them dirty on the boat.